everybody, welcome back to the shop. Before we begin, I've got an exciting announcement for the Hinkle shop that I want to lay on you folks. We've started a website where you can go and check out our products, order custom things, contact us. Anything you'd like to do on that website, we're trying to make happen. Now, it's a slow process. We're adding stuff slowly to it, products slowly to it that you can check out, laser products, CNC stuff, general builds, custom builds. Very, very excited about it. Check it out at hinkleshop.com, and let's get into this video. So what's today's video about? Today's video is about removing this wasteboard and upgrading it. I've had the same wasteboard for over 2 years on this CNC. It's served me well. It's got T-nuts in it that we clamp things down to from time to time, but it's time to make an upgrade. We're going to remove the wasteboard. We're going to put in slotted boards. We're going to put in T-slots, but no, we're not. We're not putting in aluminum T-slots. They're way too expensive. We're going to put in an alternative, or we're going to create an alternative that will get us 95% there to those expensive aluminum T-slots. So if you're interested in upgrading your wasteboard on a budget, stick with me. Let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, step one is complete. We've got the old one off. Now, there's something that I want to point out here. I don't know if the camera will allow you to see this or not. I hope it will, but right here is a raised portion where I have run a screw through to hold the products down or stock down during carves. You have to remove those. You can remove them, easily with a knife sometimes. Cut them off like so. Maybe take a sander to it. You cannot have any of those little dimples sticking up like that, or it will mess up the replacement of your board. Everything will be cattywampus, and we don't want that. So next step is to go through and make sure that we have no raised portions anywhere on this. I guess we'd call this a primary wasteboard. The one on the top we would call a secondary. Maybe this would be secondary, the one on the top would be primary. Regardless, remove those dimples. All the nubs are gone now. It's nice and smooth. And one thing I should have mentioned in the beginning, for safety's sake, remove the power from your CNC. You'd hate to have that router come on while you're working for some strange reason. Some of you all have things hooked into your computer where it turns the router on and off. We don't want that thing coming on inadvertently or mistakenly while you got your hands under here doing things. So for safety's sake, remove the power. Let's continue. Okay, next step, a new piece of MDF. I know that my CNC has a depth, or the wasteboard that I need is 38 inches deep, 38 inches wide overall. I've already cut this to 38 inches deep. I'm going to now set my fence to 4 inches, and we're going to cut 4-inch strips out of this all the way across this MDF. Don't worry about your MDF having blemishes and such at this point, because you're going to have to surface it once you put it in there in the machine anyway. This one has some glue on it here, but we're going to set this fence at 4 inches like I said, and we're going to start whack-a-moleing these things. Time to put on the 4-wheel drive. Just like that. And speaking of safety, I'm really liking this stacked featherboard from Miles Craft. They're not sponsoring this video, but I've done several videos in the past for them, flipping it over so that the feathers are facing the right way. So here's where the magic happens. We go to the local hardware store and we get ourselves some Johnnie bolts. These are toilet flange bolts that work just like Tslot bolts, but we need a T-slot to put them in. So the way we create that T-slot is we take our MDF slabs that we just cut. We're going to put them behind the blade vertically, like so. We're going to adjust the fence so over like so that this blade, the width of the blade, is being removed off the back side of your slab. Now, your T-nut will be in like this, underneath the board, like so. Actually, it'll be like this, and that will create the channel that you will use to clamp down your stock with. So the depth of cut on your blade only needs to be this much, but we'll give it just a little bit more so that we know there'll be no binding when we go to slide the T-nut down through. Edge of the threads to the edge of the nut. And that looks pretty good right there. Now we need one blade width removed from the bottom side. Not rocket science. Line up the board, slide the fence over, just like that. Lock your fence down, run the board through. If you install a double stack feather board like this one, you'll get a more accurate and a safer finished product. Turn on your dust collection, step over your dog, power, rock and roll. So now that you've run them all through and you have that edge on every one of them, and you push the last one through, obviously shut the saw off, you're going to flip it over end for end, and you're going to run them through again, creating the same bevel or the same rabbet on this side. And now if we flip these over on the table saw, we can take our nut, slide it underneath, and you just created MDF T-track. Let's flip it over this way so that you can see how this is going to work. Just like so. All right, this is starting to look like something now. So the next question is, we need to be able to get these down in here. How do we do it? The easiest solution for that is a piece of 1/2 inch MDF. If you slide your sections back, let them up against the MDF, screw them down, remove the MDF, you can now slip them in like so. And magically we have T-track. But we need to get the spacing correct. I've got a trick for that. And we need to screw them down. I'm going to allow the CNC to add screw holes inside the bed area so that I can set a countersink depth. I can set the base of the screw hole to the depth I want it, because I'm going to run screws in here. If you don't run screws in there, when you pull up on the bolt to clamp down your stock, it's going to want to bow this up in the air. So I want some extra support going down through. Obviously, we can't have the screw heads up where that bit may touch it. So countersink the screw heads, space them out. I'm going to actually use the spindle to create the spaces that I need. Let's keep going. So for the initial holding down of these slats, we're going to pre-drill a hole in the end of each one of these on each end. So let's drill them holes, then I'll come back to the table. So I'm going to use a 1, 2, 3 block to lay out where I want these holes in the end. I want them 1 inch from the back, 1 inch from the end. Obviously center is 2 inches, so this is the perfect tool for this. We line up the edge, that gives us 1 inch. We line up the edge, that gives us dead center. We take a drill, and we don't have to be tremendously accurate with this. But we do want to make sure we countersink that hole enough so that the head of the screw will never get hit if you make a mistake. On this end, I highly doubt you would ever do that. On that end, you won't be anywhere near the screw because the machine doesn't have the capability of reaching it. So again, very simply, find center, 1 inch in, drill a hole. And people might scream at me for drilling into my bench, but it helps to prevent the tear out on the back side. Rinse and repeat, only several more times. Okay, so after I drilled all of the pilot holes, countersunk them with the countersink, I then went back through with a larger bit, punched the hole bigger on every single one of them, so that when I put the screws in, there's no resistance, the screws will go through. That way it doesn't push the board around when you're trying to screw the thing in. Now, no way about it, no way around it. You're going to get some fuzz on the back. Take your sander, knock them back off. You don't want anything that messes up how flat this is on your CNC, obviously. We're back at the mill, and you have picked your very favorite, your very most favorite 2 slats to start this process with. Now here's where the magic comes in with the mill and how you can use the mill to help you set this up. At least this is the way that I do it, and I always say when I make these videos, this is how I do it. There's 100 different ways to do this. If you find something else works better for you, then absolutely use that technique. Like I said, we need space here in the front to get these bolts in, these guys. So we'll push them back, put the 1/2 inch MDF in. We are going to bring the spindle to its center point. I'm going to load any file just so I can use the machine. I'm going to jog it to its preset in the center. Like so. I'm going to spread these guys apart a little bit. I'm going to drop the Z height. And I'm going to drop it a little more. I want that bit down inside of this cavity. You can see my Pawn CNC dust boot arms just about got bumped there. This one did a little bit. We can fix that. Move these down so that they're not going to do that again. Lower the bit so that it's roughly 1/4 inch off the deck. If you don't have one of these little remote keyboards, I highly recommend getting one of those. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is bring the router forward to roughly this area here. We know it's in the center of the axis. We're going to bring it forward. Not only are we going to bring it forward, we're going to create a blooper reel. We just take each one of these slats now and bump them up against the bit. Closing it on the other end down there, bumping it here, putting in our 1/2 inch spacer, making sure that everything is touching, bumped up against here. We're going to slowly run the machine back, and we're going to keep these guys in place. Realistically, we could put a screw in here to hold it. On each side. Just like that. We can now remove this out of the way, and we can slowly roll that thing back. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a perfect gap as it rolls through. It's going to push the boards apart to the desired width. And I'm going to go all the way to the back, making sure that I keep this tight up against that bit. And that is as far as the machine will allow. But as you can see, we now have a perfect groove to run, to run your bolt down through. Should put the screws in before you do that though, obviously. I've actually reconsidered bringing that router down. It's just as easy to put 1/4 inch bits in there and use them as spacers. Then I don't have to continue to move the router back and forth. Also, set the clutch on your drill. You don't want to go stripping those holes out when you run the screws in. Okay, so there's an opportunity here for me to show you some, well, a feature within Carveco that'll help you do this. We said that we wanted to put some screw holes in the center of those slats. Let me show you the easiest way to do that with the machine. So open up Carveco, go to New Model, the width of the slats. You measure the slats on your machine. Yours may be different, so you'll need to measure the width. In my case, it's 34. The height is 38. I'm working in inches. I'm putting the origin on the bottom left for now. I'm going to change that middle of this carve. I'm going to change it after I make some adjustments or make some measurements. Click OK. And we've got our work area. Now we're going to switch to the 2D view. And the reason that I'm using the origin down here, although we won't be able to do that out in the shop because your wasteboard is greater than your capacity of your machine to reach. But the reason I'm doing this is because I want this number scale on the side to be 0 along the bottom for easy peasy lemon squeezy math here in just a moment. Let's begin with a rectangle. We're going to draw a rectangle that is the size of your slats. The width was 4 inches. The height is 38. Scroll down, click Create. Go back to the arrow, grab the corner of your box, slide it up so that it matches the corner of your work area. When you have it right, the crosshair will appear. As you can see, it changes to a crosshair, release the button. You have it in the right position now. Click off of the rectangle. Let's get him back in the middle so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing here. Now we're going to put grid lines on here to locate the holes that we need or that we want to drill in this piece. The way you do that is to come up into the top bar here, left click and drag down, and you can pull a grid line down. As we move over here to the left, you can see the numbers that I'm going to use to locate this hole. Now we know the first hole was 1 inch off of the bottom. I want the next hole 13 inches further inward. So if you scroll in just a little bit, you'll see that these numbers are changing. They become more accurate. Don't worry about the box over here. We can get that back. Hover over the grid line, left click, and slide it up until it's over the number you desire. And in this case, I want 13. Scroll back out. As you can see, we're still good. We still have the box over here. Now the next one goes in at 25. So we go to the top, left click, drag down, and we line the grid line up with number 25 on the side. You can zoom in and incredibly close, and you can see that we're off, and you can continue to move that grid line to a more precise location, to the 25, scrolling back out, back to the 13, and you can continue that until you are happy with where the location is. All right, I'm good with that. Scrolling back over here. Now I need a center line to create a crosshair to the center of this board. So we'll be on the left side. We'll left click, drag the grid over. We know that the board is 4 inches wide. Half of 4 is 2. Scrolling in until I can see the 2 on the top. Again, hovering over the grid, drag to the left until we have it on the 2 and release. Now, as you zoom into your box, you can see that you have the crosshairs to tell you where you want to put your holes. Go to the circle tool, hover over the grid lines, left click, drag out. The hole that I need is 3/8 of an inch, so over here in diameter, we're going over on this side now, we're going to change that measurement to 0.375. Click create. We need to do it again right here for the second hole. Change it to 0.375. Click create, and then back over to the arrow tool. And we have our circles. Now we don't need these grid lines any longer, so we can get rid of those by going to View and delete all guidelines. They are now gone. So here comes a trick that makes this much easier than redoing that all over again to go across your board. Go up here to these 4 circles, block and rotate copy. Click that. You want to block and copy. Scroll down. You want a gap of 1/4 inch because we spaced those boards 1/4 of an inch apart as they went across the bed of our table. Scrolling down, we want, in my case, 8 columns because I have 8 boards. We only want 1 row. I don't need to double stack or triple stack these. Now I'm going to click apply and you're going to see magic happen. You will see magic happen if you select what you want to block and copy. Let's try that again. Now we'll see magic. Close this out. And as you can see, we now have 8 slats with all the holes in the proper orientation. While this is highlighted, hit F9 to ensure that the whole thing is in the middle where it belongs. We're going to click off of this, and now you want to go to Model, Set Size, and here's where I'm going to change the origin. I want the origin back in the middle. You won't be able to line up your machine here on the bottom left because your router bit will not reach that corner. At least it won't in the case of a Shapeoko. So if we move the origin to the center, click OK. Now the origin is in the middle. How do I prove it? I go to 3D view up here on the top, and I have the origin turned on so I can see that it is there. Let's go back to the 2D view. Now we got to go through each of these images and ensure that they are not grouped together. We need these holes to be all grouped together, but we don't want the boxes grouped together. It appears that we are good because as I click on these, I don't see the boxes lighting up, so we're in good shape there. Now what we're going to do is we have this one highlighted. We're going to push down on the Shift key, and we're going to scroll up and select those 2. Continue to hold the Shift key. Go to the next side, left click, drag, and go up. And we're going to do this all the way across the boards. And once we have them all lit, we're going to group these together. so that we don't have to do this again when we do the tool paths. Okay, we have them all lit. Release the shift key, click on group, and as you can see, they're now grouped. So when we click on this, they light up. Tool path is just like any other tool path. This will be a area clearance. Click on tool paths, scroll down, create area clearance tool path, start depth 0, finish depth is however deep you want the heads of those screws to land. In my case, I wanted them half the thickness of a 3/4 inch piece of MDF. That again is 3/8, so 0.375 goes in here, 0.375. You have to click on it, 0.375. And we're going to grab a tool. We want 1/4 inch end mill, because a flat end mill, you want a flat bottom on the bottom of those holes. Click it once more. Actually, we don't need to. We can scroll down and change the settings I want here. I would change this to 50 inches per minute, change it to an offset tool movement, define the material, 3/4 inch MDF, click OK, give it a name, we'll call it holes. Calculate now, and as you can see, we're going to punch some holes that are not all the way through these boards. And that's all there is to it. You all know how to save tool paths. If you don't, I've got several videos that you can go back through to learn how to do that. But let's go back out to the shop now, and we'll punch these holes in the top of these boards and continue with this fancy schmancy wasteboard setup. Okay, so most of you know I like to work off the center of my projects. I don't have center in this case. Here's another little trick. Put a piece of blue tape down, then you can write your X on the blue tape. I've already gone ahead and zeroed the machine to the center here. We'll put in these screws. All right, and let's run one final test. Is this thing flat? It sure looks like it to me. All right, everybody, there you have it. A track system wasteboard for the CNC. It's going to be awesome. It's going to help me out a ton. Now, some of the features with this thing, some of the advantages to this is unlimited clamping. I can clamp in any position I need to. I can now have a mobile fence. Instead of having it screwed to the deck, I can move it back, twist it, put it in any position I like. I got to get some more of these black knobs off the jungle store. I've only got some wing nuts here for now, but this is an incredible upgrade to the Shapeoko here. I highly recommend you all do that. Now, if you find that the bolts are turning underneath the wing nuts or your knobs when you put them in there, you can put a little bit of sandpaper on the heads of the bolts, and that'll stop that for sure. But I don't really see that being a problem. I've twisted and tightened on these things, and I can assure you that stock is not going anywhere with this new system. Not until I remove it anyway. As always, I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope maybe you learned something. Don't forget, hinkleshop.com, our new website. Go check that out. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one.